You ready?
Cue him on the video.
Okay.
Okay.
Another case study. It's good. Trust me. I've
So
seen it.
being in the middle of political season, I thought I would do my best Clint Eastwood impersonation and start asking questions of Brian Wallace, who actually isn't here today with us. But unfortunately, Brian isn't here, but we have the secret sauce behind Samsung and what they do in marketing. So Dan Neely with Networked Insights. Dan, tell us what happened with Brian today and why he's not here.
So, as you can imagine, Samsung's had quite the success since September 12th, and they're working on the next thing. So they're working on what's going to happen next, and so he apologized for not being here, but look forward to see what's coming out next.
So Dan, given how closely you work with Brian and the team, and they arrived in Dallas about a year ago with a relatively unknown brand in the smartphone business, what was the state of the marketing department a year ago?
Sure. So Brian and Todd arrived, as you said, a year ago. Samsung a year ago was roughly tied for 5th in the smartphone space as far as preference goes. And as they looked at that, they evaluated and saw they were making some decisions in various ways. And one of the big things which happens generally in marketing is they were making decisions using intuition. They were making decisions based on what they thought the market needed. And it was very much oriented towards the product itself versus being oriented towards what is the customer actually using this device for. And so when they came in, they shifted to how can we start thinking about what the consumer actually wants versus how do we talk about feeds and speeds on the device. That was probably the biggest shift. Over the previous 12 months, so the entire market is measured by preference. So that's how all of the companies in the space measure themselves. And Samsung was basically flat and wasn't gaining any ground. And so their ability to look at that and say, hey, we needed a change. And so, they came in, they hired the brightest people in the world, and they've started doing some things that I think are radically different than most organizations.
Great. So what changed and how did the team start down the road of outsmarting the competition?
Yeah, we're going to take a look at the first spot that launched the next big thing for Samsung here in a second. And what we did is we basically said, let's understand what the consumer really is struggling with. And we started learning a whole bunch of things. We learned that they wanted 4G, that the battery life sucked, that every device looked just like the previous device. They hated waiting in line. We knew a whole bunch of things about the competition that we could start using and putting into the campaign, if you will. We didn't invest a ton of money saying, hey, you know what, we're going to take a huge risk. We basically used data to inform what it was that was going to be in these campaigns. And so it was a radical departure, certainly from the way it's traditionally done. It meant that we were investing money as we saw what was working versus investing it all ahead of the campaign. So when we see something that's really working and we say, hey, this creative is really hitting, let's go ahead and let's double down on it in a pretty significant way. And so the result was, the first spot. And the other thing was we stopped taking ourselves so seriously. Right, we said, the market needs to have a little bit of a laugh at itself, and so we said, let's take what the consumer really thinks and feels, and let's pull that in. The spot we're about to see, it literally is it's verbatims of things that we were seeing in the marketplace that the consumer really cared about, and it translated into a spot that you'll see, and you'll see the messaging that exists in there.
Great. Let's roll the first spot.
3 hours till phone nirvana.
Yeah. I'm so amped. I could stand here for 3 weeks.
9 hours down, and we're almost in the door.
Only 7 people stand between us and
meeting.
Yeah, this is an event. We're gonna remember this for the rest of our lives.
I think 2 people just left.
Why would they be leaving when we're only 9 hours away?
Blogs are saying the battery looks sketchy.
If it looks the same, how will people know I upgraded?
4G? Is it 4G? It doesn't say.
Whoa. What you got there?
Not sure.
What is that? Guys.
Whoa. Hey, bro, can we see your phone?
Sure.
Can I see with my hands? Have you seen this thing?
Ooh.
She totally caught me checking out her phone.
Check out the screen. This thing is huge.
It's pretty massive. And it's got 4G speed.
It's magnificent.
Samsung.
Samsung? That's a Samsung. Yeah.
Is this what adultery feels like?
Samsung.
Pretty big display.
It's the next thing, man.
Whatevs.
I could never get a Samsung. I'm creative.
Dude, you're a barista.
Why don't you guys just get 4G phones? Why don't you just get a 4G phone?
Speaking of which, soy no wave mocha, please.
Pretty thin, huh?
Yeah, it's a Galaxy S2. This phone is amazing.
The Galaxy S2 from Samsung.
That's old school. Classic.
Yeah, this is kind of retro thing, which I like.
Yeah.
So Dan, tell us what happened as a result of this first campaign.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things we knew going in, right? We knew about 4G, standing in line, battery life that looks the same. We knew a bunch of that stuff. Things we didn't know were actually the things if you listen to the room, were the things you guys were laughing at, right? The barista guy. We didn't know that was going to work, but it did, and we doubled down on it, right? We now knew what to invest in because we knew the consumer really cared about it, and we knew it was really a way for us to position ourselves against the competition. And so we could see this in real-time data, and that's what was informing our creative strategy and our media strategy and our communication strategy as a team. And so as we continued down the path, right, we'd learned about 4G snarky girl, right? Why don't you just get a 4G phone, right? She ultimately that was what was happening in the marketplace, and again, we could continue to use that. But it allowed us to see that, we started moving up from a preference standpoint. All of a sudden, from a company that in the previous 12 months we'd been flat, we were starting to gain ground pretty rapidly on our competition. And so it was seen as working. It was seen as, how do I use data to drive the decisions rather than using data just to measure the decision I've already made. And so we're using data to pre-inform our decision process rather than using it to, say, how did we do? And so that was the big shift, and we were gaining ground pretty rapidly at this point.
So after the Galaxy S2 launches, the next phone out's the Galaxy Nexus. It's coming out around one of the biggest events of the year, the Super Bowl. Samsung, a company that really has never invested quite so heavily, especially around Super Bowl and buying Super Bowl spots, and blasting a massive ad campaign out there. Tell us some of the challenges and what the decision-making process was like internally to actually get Samsung to continue down their strategy of a lot of firsts in marketing.
Yeah, so we had, the Nexus came out, and then the Super Bowl was about the Note. So when we first launched the Note. And so as we looked at that, it was, if you can imagine going to a relatively conservative company and saying, hey, we're going to go in the Super Bowl. They'd never invested in the Super Bowl before. And so they're trying to figure out what to do, what to put in there, how to make it work. And one of the recommendations that came out, which is the one we all get a laugh out of now, and you'll see in the spot when we show you in a second, was when we selected The Darkness and I Believe in a Thing Called Love. If you can imagine going in front of the chairman in Korea talking about a guy in a pink jumpsuit, right? That's the chaos. But the reason we were able to select that was, again, we went in with, hey, this is not us thinking we know what we're doing. It's, it's creative intuition coupled with data that says this is going to work. We had learned that they were going to release tour dates the day after the Super Bowl. And so all of a sudden it made sense to pick this band rather than not. We did the same thing with Brian Urlacher, as far as we learned that the consumer on the GS2, that they wanted to see a real screen rather than a simulated screen. And so we actually showed the real screen. We filmed on the actual device, and you'll see it in the spot. But also it was about, so when we made media decisions, it was how do we find places that have massive amounts of reach, right? The Super Bowl is a massive reach play, but it's how do we then extend that out into mobile, into digital? So folks like Tapjoy, right, and their video network, how do we use that and leverage it in the right way because it has such scale and such reach? And finding those places that were going to help us extend our spend and really work in the right way, that's ultimately what we were trying to do with this specific spot.
All right, can we go to that spot?
I can't believe we're missing the game for this. This feels like detention.
Want to see a picture of my cat?
No. Whoa, 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 what is that?
Here, it's the new Samsung Galaxy Note.
It's got a pen? This is awesome.
Yeah.
Samsung.
Yeah.
Again.
I don't know what I believe in anymore.
I know what I believe in.
Making me feel freedom. My thoughts in overdrive.
Introducing the Galaxy Note from Samsung.
Well, that was over the top.
So we had to end with that guy, right? The reason we had to end with that guy is we basically provided some separation between those people that consider them to be, a hardcore, towards the hardcore competitive brand, and those people that did not. And so this was what allowed us to do that separation.
So Samsung is investing quite a bit in the different types of analytics that Networked Insights provides. Tell us, how much are they investing overall?
So I'm not going to give you a specific number because it's considered to be a pretty proprietary thing for Samsung. I will tell you that it gives analytics and data an even seat at the table. So it's a structure where when creating the brief, if you will, it's being created now by folks that are in analytics and data because they understand kind of what's going on with the consumer and where the opportunity exists. So it allows us to be kind of the first conversation is now about the consumer versus maybe that used to be further down the line, or it used to come through other means. And it's also for Samsung, they want something that has an unbiased point of view versus something that says, hey, the answer should be this. And so that's why they're making the investments. The scale at which they're making the investments, I would say that you could probably put five companies in the Fortune 500 together, and they're spending at that levels in the aggregate of those 5 companies.
So given that you work so closely with the client, what type of agency model is most effective in this scenario?
Yeah, I think it's allowed us to to break down some of the walls. Traditionally, analytics have come in through agencies, right? So through creative agencies, media agencies, PR agencies. And they still bring data and analytics to the table, but now we have an even seat at the table. It also allows us to break down the barriers of there are times when we have to go direct to those that are selling media, right? So if I take yourselves, right? So if I take Tapjoy, our ability we need something to react really fast. And you'll see that when we talk about the next, what we've done recently. That ability to react really fast is we've got to take out some of the friction cost. And friction cost isn't to say friction is a bad thing. It just is the handoffs that take place. We just have to minimize them. So what it said is everyone has a role at the table, and we understand what that role is. There are things that we're not doing and we will never do. But it allows us to have an honest conversation about how do we move quickly and how do we take advantage of what the consumer wants right now versus, we knew what the consumer wanted right now, but we weren't able to do anything about it for 3 months. That cannot happen, and I think you saw that in the most recent set of campaigns that we did.
Yeah, so take us through some of those. Talk to us about the latest creative that's out in the market across digital and across television.
So this for me was personally was a moment where I saw a market change, and so you get to see those probably once in your career. And what I got to see was we had an announcement that was done by the competition on September 12th, and in a room in California, in LA, there were a group of individuals that are some of the brightest in the world. And what we had the analytics coming in saying what it is that we cared about. That then was going to creative that was doing development of creative. We had media at the table and media partners at the table that were helping us think about where and how do we activate it. We then took it to PR. We then took it to scripts that were going to the street of where the spot was being filmed. All of that in a single room being able to work very, very quickly. The spot that we're about to look at took a very short period of time to make. We had nothing on September 12th. This came out roughly 4 days later. And the success was we had no media in market and 9 million people had already seen it before we put media into market. That type of result is something that you very rarely see, but it's because we position ourselves right where the market was at the time. And what you'll see now with the spots that are in market is we learned what worked, right? We were fortunate we were able to put a 90 out on our own YouTube channel, which then allowed us to put a 60 into market. We then learned what was working and what did they really want. And so the next spots you'll see that are now in market are all the things that we learned, that people really loved about this next campaign. And we were able to take advantage of something and take advantage of someone else's investments in media, and that's what really worked. So I think it's one of those proud moments where you literally see, what does a week in the life of a real-time marketer look like? We got to live it, right? We got to live it for a week, and now we continue to do it. So,
cool. Let's roll that spot.
Hey,
They're saying that this phone's going to be like a precious jewel.
Ooh, I love that.
The headphone jack is going to be on the bottom.
I heard the connector is all digital.
What?
What does that even mean?
Who knows?
I'm psyched.
All I'm saying is that they should have a priority line for people who've waited 5 times.
I heard you have to have an adapter to use the dock on the new one.
Yeah, but they make the coolest adapters.
Welcome back.
Guess that Galaxy S3 didn't work out.
No, I love the GS3. It's extremely awesome. I'm just saving a spot in line for someone.
That's not cool.
Yeah, man.
This year, we're finally getting everything that we didn't get last year.
Yeah.
The big screen.
True 4G.
Yep. What is that?
Hey, what'd you just do?
Oh, I just sent him a playlist.
By touching phones?
Yep. Simple as that.
It's the Galaxy S3.
Hey! Hey, Mom, Dad.
Oh, thanks for holding our spot.
Hey, man.
Oh, hey.
How's it going?
Saved you a spot.
I moved on.
But you're not gonna miss all this?
I got the Samsung GS3 now. Is that a Samsung?
That's a new Samsung. It is. It's pretty cool.
But I kind of like it.
This one's 4G.
Yeah, we've had that for a while.
This one's got a big screen.
This one has a bigger one. And we can share videos instantly. You can watch a video while you're sending an email.
Well, we're gonna get that, for sure. Maybe not this time, but the next time, right?
The next big thing is already here, the Samsung Galaxy S3.
So we, after it came out, I think now we have close to 15 million views on on that specific spot, and we're rolling out new ones, or just rolled out new ones where, like, the parents are now a bigger part of the spot. The jack on the bottom is now a bigger piece of the spot, because those are all the things that were resonating. So we were able to adjust in real time something that has arguably taken a long time in history. And so it's a huge advantage for us. And so we don't, TV is a vehicle, and so I've showed you TV here, but when we take video and we roll it across the rest of our partners, right, it's really important for us that they can work with us really, really quickly. Because if it slows down at all, we lose our advantage, right? So the fact that we were able to hijack our competitors' launch, and we did it in a pretty major way, was because we could move in real time, right? And we need all the partners in the ecosystem to be able to move in real time. So when we work with companies like Tapjoy, it's like, can you move in real time? Because that's ultimately what we have to get to.
So what happened as a result of these campaigns? A year ago, Samsung was like number 5. Where do things sit today?
Yeah,
consumer sentiment.
Yeah, from a sentiment standpoint, Q4 will be number 1 from a sentiment standpoint. When we look at where we've come from, we're from going to not really being on the radar to being the number 2, the ultimate alternate, right, is great. Now we're going to be number 1 in Q4, right? That's what all of this was about, so that we could be number 1 in Q4, and that's what we're shooting for.
So we're at a mobile conference. We've talked a lot about video, both television and mobile. How important of a role does mobile play for Samsung being a mobile company?
It's huge, right? I mean, if we think about consumption of content, one of the things we were going to put up here, but we didn't, but if you go around Manhattan, you'll see these NFC boards. You don't know they're NFC boards, but it's share a story, right? So it's if you go onto the side of a bus stop, you hold your phone up to it and it says, I've got a story to share, and you can download a story. You can download a song from, like Alicia Keys or something like that. And it's all integrated. So we've taken content and media and we've put them in the same place. That happens because of mobile. It doesn't happen because of something else. So being able to take advantage of that is really important to us.
Right. So there are other sellers in the room. I'm sure they'd love to know, how do you work closely with Samsung? What do they look for in a partner?
So the biggest thing is you have to have a bald head. If you know Brian, he has a bald head too. No, we're shaving Geoff's head later. So I think the most important thing is that you bring something to the table that's a point of view about Samsung, right? Very rarely does someone come into that room and say, hey, you know what, here's what we're doing great. It's like, here's how we can help Samsung, and having a very specific story. I think the other piece is the fact that you can come in with an interesting insight, right? The fact that you can walk in the room and say, here's an interesting thing that no one else really knew, that's very compelling to those guys, because they're going after firsts, right? They want to do firsts. That's the overall goal. So when you can walk in the room and you're not talking about yourself, you're talking about Samsung, and you can come in with an interesting insight about their customer, then you'll generally win, and then the rest of it will just happen.
Great. We've got a few minutes left. We'll open it up to the audience if they've got any questions.
Okay, question right here.
Clearly, the people who are buying Samsung are their brand lovers. What are you doing to exploit or capitalize on the viral capability that the people who are buying your product are having with their friends and family?
I think that's what we're taking advantage of. To say they're Samsung brand lovers, right? Remember, a year ago, we weren't really in the ecosystem from a brand standpoint. So to make that shift, we've given the consumer ultimately what they want and their ability to share, right? We've taken advantage of the social implications of mobile. So that's how we went from 0 to 9 million in roughly 16 hours as far as people viewing what we did, right? That doesn't happen typically for a brand, right? It happens for interesting viral videos. It doesn't typically happen for a brand spot. And so we've taken advantage of it because we know what their social connections look like, so we know where to plant in the marketplace, and therefore we can take advantage of that from the standpoint of they will do a lot of work for us.
Okay, any other questions here? That was a great case study, by the way, guys.
Thanks.
I loved it. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right, you guys are so easy.
Nice.
Thank you,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
guys.
Thank you. All right.